7:23 p.m. Euro. City Mall Bacor, West Wing Service Corridors, first floor. Mark carefully knocked on the door. He knocked only once, and even though it was not loud to attract the zombies, it was loud enough to startle the people inside. After his knock, he could hear shuffling sounds and a surprised but muffled shriek. Using that knock, Mark gauged the emotional fluctuations of the two people inside. One of the two shrunk in fear while the other was also frightened but had steeled emotions and readied to fight. As he finished his assessment, Mark nodded at Paula, urging her to call out. "Is anyone in there?" Paula called out with a slightly loud voice and knocked on the door twice. Hearing her shout, Mark detected the change in emotions on the other side of the door. The two inside were happy and excited as they heard a human voice which was different from what they expected. The two inside hurriedly shuffled towards the door and opened it with fast, and they were surprised to see two people armed with weapons and wearing sci-fi looking armor and helmet of contrasting colors. Paula dragged Mark and backed several steps away from the door. Mark felt it was unnecessary, but he just let her do so. When the door opened, they saw the two people peek from the side. It was a pair of male and female college students who both wore white uniforms. Still, the supposed to be clean and white uniforms were stained with splotches and drops of blood. The male student had an about over a foot long hatchet stained with blood in his hand as he stared at Mark and Paula vigilantly. The female student looked really excited, but the male student did not let her go out of the door. "Who are you two?" the male student asked in a low voice. Mark did not speak and just looked at Paula to do the introductions. "We're survivors who came down to get medicine. We noticed that there are people inside, so we checked it out." Hearing what she said, the male student's vigilance lessened. In his mind, he stressed out the clues, "came down," and "medicine." He then asked, "Did you two check us out to help us?" "That depends. If you needed help, we'll do, and if not, then we'll leave." It was Mark who replied to the student's question with a detached attitude. Mark then shrugged his shoulders after he saw Paula glaring at him. The two students that stood by the door did not seem to mind his attitude and nodded. They walked out of the door. The female student's vigilance was almost none, but the male student maintained his caution, which made Mark nod. The male student looked at Paula and asked, "About you just said, did the two of you come from the floors above? Are there other people?" Paula looked at Mark before replying. "He cleared the zombies in a large part of the third floor, so we set out camp there along with a number of other people." She was not the person to steal someone's achievement, so he told a bit of truth to elevate Mark's status. Mark felt it was unnecessary and sighed. The two students looked at Mark, who was donned in black armor and helmet and equipped with several weapons. With what the woman in white armor said, he was a strong person. Paula then continued, "What do you two want to do? We still need to find medicine, so you can come with us, or you two can just go first to our camp. You two can also hide again inside there and wait for us to come back." Mark added, "Can't you lead us to your camp first?" the female student asked with unease. The two people who found them were obviously ready and capable of fighting the zombies. She did not want to separate from them in an unsafe place like this. The male student, who seemed to get her meaning, felt a little down but did not say anything and just waited for the reply. "We can't, our business is urgent. We are already wasting time here talking with you." Mark replied and shot an eater shambling towards them from a distance with his crossbow. The two saw the zombie fell and shuddered. It was then that the male student then spoke while gripping his hatchet. "Well, follow you. I know that I won't be too much of help, but I can protect the two of us." Mark looked at Paula and nodded before turning towards their destination and walked away. "Follow us, closely," Paula said to the two before following Mark. "Are they okay?" Paula whispered to Mark. "They should be. Still, you owe me a favor now." She was worried what kind of favor Mark wanted, but still nodded. As they passed through the corridor, the two students that were following behind were amazed by the actions of the two. There were almost no zombies that could get close, as they were felled stealthily, while those that managed to come close was decisively dealt by the man in black armor. "What's the name of you two?" Paula asked as she glanced behind while pulling an arrow off the head of a dead biter. I'm Briandon and she's Julie. Mine's Paula and that unsocial guy there is Mark. Mark, who pulled a crossbow bolt from the head of a dead eater, turned his head at Paula. He did not say anything and just faced the opposite direction. He walked forward and hacked the legs of another eater, making it fall down of the floor, and hacked its neck several times. Mark was not using his other ability right now, so the power on his swings was a little weaker. He needed about 2 to 3 swings to completely hack off an eater's neck. While it was just normal for him, his actions made the others feel that he was displeased somehow. Finally, after some struggle, the group arrived in front of a double door that was connected to the storage of the store that sells medicine. They were sure of it since the door was painted with the logo of the store. Mark tried to rotate the doorknob and open the doors, but it was locked. Paula also frowned, as they did not have any other access to the store aside from these doors unless they wanted to scour towards the front of the store, which was surely overrun by zombies since the storefront of this store was a wide open space. Under the gaze of the three, Mark flicked the cover of the belt bag on the back of his waist open and took 2 oddly shaped tools made with cut-out metal sheets. One was a flat and straight metal stick with a wavy end, while the other was an L-shaped tool. Paula was surprised when she saw the tools. She did not expect that Mark also knew how to do these things. When he opened the locked double door in the cinema, he hacked the lock open with a knife, but this door had a different kind of lock, and as such, he would not be able to use the same method. "You also know how to pick locks?" she asked Mark out of curiosity. "Though I'm glad that you have an interest in asking things about myself, don't you think you're asking too much?" Hearing his reply, Paula did not pursue the topic, but she still pouted behind her helmet. If anyone would saw her face right now, she looked like a child denied from buying a doll she wanted. Actually, the only reason Mark did not want to tell her was because he learned to pick locks due to an embarrassing reason. It was when he broke the doorknob of the main door of his house that he needed to pick the lock to open it. As he did not have money that time to replace the knob, he needed to pick the lock open every single time he went home after going out. Click. A clicking sound was heard and Mark silently pushed the doors open. After checking that there was no one inside, he signaled for the group to enter. 7:23 p.m. Euro. City Mall Bacor, Central Area, First Floor, Batson's storage area. Mark and Paula started checking the labels printed at the boxes inside the storage one by one. There were a lot of boxes stacked over one another with all sorts of products, from skincare cosmetics, baby necessities and nutrient supplement drinks to different kinds of medicines. "What kind of medicine are you looking for?" Briandon asked Paula. "Paracetamol for children, the syrup one. That's the priority. Also other medicine for common diseases just in case. Let us help look for those." "All right." The 2 students also started searching the storage for medicine Paula spoke about. "Hey, Briandon, right. Use this to store what you find." Mark threw his backpack to Briandon and the latter nodded. Though it just seemed normal, Paula noticed that Mark had a different reason why he passed his backpack to Briandon. Mark was standing in place while looking towards the direction of the storefront. "Is something wrong?" Paula approached him and asked. She could not see Mark's face because of his helmet, but right now, his eyebrows were tightly knit. Mark did not immediately notice it, but when he moved closer to that area near the storefront, he felt it. As he could detect emotions of the people around him, there were times that he could detect unusual emotional fluctuations. It was when the person he detected was dangerous, like killers and people high of drugs whose emotions were highly unstable. But right now, he could not fathom what kind of person he was detecting. He was sure it was not a zombie, as he never detected any emotional fluctuations from them. It was more like the zombies were moving by instinctual urges. The fluctuation he was detecting right now was faint. It made him sure that it was a child. But the strange thing was the emotion he detected from that child. Calm. The only emotion he could detect was calmness. There was no sadness, no happiness, and no fear. It was really strange if it was just a child. Mark looked at Paula and spoke. "Continue searching for the medicine. I'm going to check something." He did not explain to Paula what he was going to check, as he did not know how to explain it either. He walked away towards the door that led to the storefront. Paula felt strange as he did not explain why. She just followed what he said and continued searching for the medicine. Mark leaned his back towards the door and slightly opened it. Using the compact mirror, he looked at the situation outside. He was surprised. The storage room had two doors that led to the storefront. The door he opened led towards the enclosed counter where the clerks receive the payments for the products sold. It was also where clerks attend customers who had prescriptions from their doctors and give the medicine they needed, like how it was in pharmacies. The only difference from pharmacies was that the area was just enclosed by a long counter table. What surprised him was the scene at the area behind the door. There were several mangled zombies of different sizes. He was sure that the bodies were from zombies as there were bites visible on some parts of the bodies along with the other changes of appearance that could only be seen on bodies of zombies. He could see some zombies lurking quite a distance outside the counter, but the area within the counter had none but the mangled bodies. Seeing that the situation within the counter area was safe, Mark crouched down and slowly moved out. He then froze. Under one of the payment counters, he was a life-size doll of a girl with black wavy below shoulder-length hair wearing a red frilled dress. Her pale light-skinned face was stained with red paint and the dress had tears in various places. The doll sat on the floor with her legs stretched out and she was missing her right shoe. Then, the doll looked at him. She was not a doll but a child about 5 to 6 years old. Though he did not actually thought that she was a doll, but her appearance would make anyone think so. If not for the emotional fluctuations he was feeling from her, he would think that he was looking at a ghost. Her dress was not red-colored and it was not paint that stained her face. The girl looked like she just took a literal bloodbath. Mark slowly approached the girl and the girl just watched him calmly. There was no joy seeing a human or cautiousness seeing a stranger. She just calmly watched him move closer. "Who are you?" The girl spoke. Her voice was calm and full of innocence. "Just someone passing by." "Are you alone?" Mark replied and asked her as he crouched in front of her. He looked around and saw a display case by the counter and took a packet of wet wipes. As he took the packet by the counter, he heard her reply. "Mom died. I'm alone now." He looked at her and did not know how to react. She just said that her mom died and she was alone, but she was still mostly calm as she said those words. The only change was there was a thin thread of loneliness in her voice. He tore the pack open and started wiping her face and arms without her consent, but the girl did not resist either and just watched him gently removing the blood stains on her body. "Did you get bit by the zombies?" Mark asked as he was confused with all the bloodstains on her body. To his surprise, the girl raised her right arm and looked at it. He wiped the blood on the girl's arm, but he saw no bite, which made him really confused. He looked at the girl and he saw the same expression. She looked confused, but strange enough that Mark could not detect any change from her emotional fluctuation. She looked confused in the outside, but Mark was uncertain about her emotions inside. "Stranger Euro. Do you want to come with me? There are other people with me behind that door and in our camp on the floor above." The girl stared at Mark for a bit after he said that and nodded. "What's your name?" "Abigail." Mark then froze once more. It was not because of the girl, but he was feeling danger. It was the similar feeling he got after detecting murderous intent from other people. If he were to describe the feeling using a video game, it was like hearing random boss fight music without actually seeing the boss. He immediately leaned at the counter and took out his compact mirror. He raised it up so he could see the situation at the storefront. Then he saw it. "What the hell?" Mark murmured. What he saw was a humanoid whose head and half of body were covered with black charred-looking thick substance. The substance had several cracks on it. In the cracks, Mark could see a glowing gel-like liquid that had the same appearance as a lit charcoal. Its clothes looked melted and there were white patches visible on its skin that was not covered by the black substance, indicating that it was exposed to high temperatures before. Mark would have ignored it even if it just happened to pass by, but the problem was it was moving towards their direction. He did not know why or how, but he was sure that it knew that he and this girl was here. Lucky was that the humanoid was moving in very slow steps. It seemed that the black substance covering its body was also hindering it from moving faster. Another thing was this guy had no eyes. The place where the eyes were supposed to be was also covered by the thick black substance. He then noticed that there were distortions in the air around that humanoid's body. Heat distortions? Then it indicates that this humanoid's body was burning in high temperatures. Mark took out his phone and took few pictures as he aimed his crossbow at the humanoid. Swoosh! The bolt swished and hit the forehead of the humanoid. As the bolt drilled into its head, it staggered backwards, and that's it. It did not die as the crossbow bolt did not pierce deep enough due to the thick substance covering its head. It was not good. He saw the bolt made of metal on its forehead slowly bend as if being melted, and the part of the bolt sticking out of its head fell on the floor with a loud metal sound. The zombies around were alerted. He looked at the girl under the counter. Hold on tight. Mark then quickly picked up Abigail into his embrace and bolted towards the storage room. 7:31 p.m. Euro. City Mall Bacor, Central Area, First Floor, Batson's storage area. Carrying Abigail, Mark bolted inside the storage and immediately shut the door close. Paula and the two students were surprised after the suddenly entered. Paula wanted to ask him what happened first, but she was not able to as Mark suddenly spoke with urgency. Found the medicine. We did. What's wrong? Then let's leave. A new kind of mutant appeared and I didn't manage to kill it. What? Paula was surprised. She immediately packed everything and urged the two students who were clueless to help. Mutant? What are those? Briandon asked Paula as he closed the bag Mark gave him before. More powerful zombies. Those three words shook the students to their core. Just the zombies they encountered before already cost them a lot just to survive, and there were more powerful ones? Who is that girl? Paula asked Mark while looking at the girl he was carrying. I found her under the counter outside. Is she what yo? Thump. Thump. Paula did not manage to finish her question as thumping sounds came from the door Mark just closed. Let's go. Mark urged the three and bolted out of the storage into the service corridor. Then his eyes dilated behind his helmet. What the? Hurry up, run. Mark yelled at the three. They heard his shout and glanced at the direction he was looking at, and they saw a large female zombie running their way. Seeing the zombie, the two students immediately ran away. Paula and Mark also began to retreat. Another fat mutant. Mark did not hesitate anymore. Hold this. Mark threw his crossbow to Paula and pulled the shotgun hanging on his side. Abigail, cover your ears. Hearing what he said, the little girl covered her ears and burrowed her head on Mark's left shoulder. Bang! After the female fat mutant passed the door of the store they just exited, Mark shot the leg of the mutant zombie. Just like how he dealt with the zombified fat bastard before, he decided to use the body of this fat mutant to block the zombies that would come from that store if they managed to break down the door. However, due to his gunshot, the zombies on the other side of the corridor started to flock towards them. As they ran away, Mark pulled out the radio James gave him. Angeline, are you there? Angeline? Gerger? Mayor? Why is the radio with you? Where is Angeline? Gerger, she's at the entrance of the store. She got wounded. So, he really attacked? Is she all right? Yes, he attacked. Angeline is fine. She just received a paper cut. Okay. I'll deal with that guy later. We're on our way back. Tell Angeline to send people to the stairwell and bring things to barricade the door. We're being chased by zombies right now. Okay. Gerger. Be careful. All right. Go. Mark stored the radio back in his belt with a dark countenance. He was releasing too much killing intent that even Paula and the two students felt shivers on their backs. As the radio was loud, Paula also heard what May said, and she also looked grim. Mark wanted to vent his anger right now. If he was not carrying Abigail, he might have stopped and killed all the zombies behind them. He then saw a water dispenser by the side of the corridor. Mark subconsciously activated his adrenaline rush and kicked the water dispenser. The dispenser was knocked back about 2 meters and the water container above it was toppled. The water from the container spread across the floor, which made the biters chasing them slip on the floor. The three was surprised not by the method Mark used to deter the zombies for some time, but to how the slightly heavy dispenser was knocked back at that distance. Just how much strength was needed to do that? Feeling the pain in his foot, Mark calmed down a little. He could also feel Abigail's arms tightening on his neck the more he felt angry. Now that he calmed down somehow, the girl's arms also loosened. He could not help but feel a little grateful to this girl. As Mark and Paula secured this area before, they did not encounter more danger as they ran away and arrived at the door leading to the stairwell. Fernan and Ella opened the door to let them in, and Mark urged the two to jam the door shut. The two were surprised that Mark and Paula returned with 3 more people. Still, when they heard the urgency in Mark's voice, the two immediately complied. It was then that several employees came down from the 3rd floor carrying heavy stuff to use and barricade the door as per Mark's instructions. Returning back inside the tech zone, Paula directly went to find Rhea to give her the medicine Saria needed, while Mark, carrying Abigail, went to find Ange and May. Briandon and Julie, on the other hand, hugged each other in joy as they managed to survive and find a safer place to stay. Mark also found May and Ange at the store. Rhea and her daughter was staying, making the time separating with Paula worthless. What he saw inside the store where the 2 girls stayed previously was a tied-up man being guarded by an employee. He did not feel dealing with that man right at that moment, so he went and looked for the 2. When Mark entered the store, Rhea approached him with gratitude, which Mark denied for now, as Saria was just fed with the medicine and it had not taken effect yet. Mark looked at Ange, whose hand was bandaged. Yes, she got a paper cut on her palm, but it was quite long. May, on the other hand, wanted to hug Mark as he returned, but became quite displeased as she was not able to. It was because Mark was still carrying Abigail in his arms. Paula was confused and could not help but ask him, "Why don't you put her down?" As he heard her question, Mark removed his helmet with his free hand and put it on a counter while sighing. "I wish I could." Everyone became confused. Ange had an idea and stood up, going behind Mark and peered at Abigail's face. She then spoke. "The girl is sleeping." They all became flabbergasted, especially Paula. She thought that the girl was just being silent while being carried by Mark. She did not expect that she was sleeping. "When did she fell asleep?" Paula asked. "After I kicked that water dispenser." "Aren't we running at that time?" "Well, yeah." Mark looked troubled. "Then put her down so she can sleep in a better position," Ange suggested. Mark then looked at her. "Why don't you try to peel off her arm?" Ange became more confused after hearing what he said. She then grabbed the hands of the girl that were locked on Mark's neck and tried to peel it off. She was surprised. She could not remove her hands from him. Just how strong was this girl? The girl only looked 5 or 6 years old, but the strong and battle-experienced Ange could not remove the girl off Mark's neck. Still, it looked like what she did had an effect. The girl woke up yawning under the surprised gazes of the women around Mark. Abigail looked around and ignored their gazes. She then looked at Mark and spoke. "Papa, I'm hungry." Cough, cough. Mark choked on his saliva. Just where in the world did that come from? Mark did not know how to react to being called Papa by Abigail. Everyone who heard Abigail was surprised at first, but as they looked at the rare and precious expression that appeared on Mark's face, they understood what was happening. Except Angie. "She's your daughter?" Everyone looked at her with incredulous expressions. She immediately noticed that everyone was staring at her like she's an idiot. She flinched. "I'm wrong, aren't I?" Paula nodded at her airheaded friend. Sighing, Mark spoke. "I'm not your papa, all right. Don't you think your real papa will be sad?" Abigail wisely shook her head. "Mommy said that Daddy hated us and left Mommy before I was born. I don't have a papa." The girl looked straight at Mark's eyes like piercing into his soul. "I want you to be my papa." Mark started to have a headache. Everyone did not know what to think about this girl's amazing logic. Furthermore, the girl's brain did not seem to work her age at all. Peeved, Ange was laughing at Mark's predicament. They then all heard Abigail repeat what she said before. "Papa, I'm hungry." Mark felt defeated. "All right, you should wash up first. You literally bathed in blood." Abigail looked at her clothes and nodded. Asterisk 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 7:50 p.m. Euro. City Mall Bacor, West Wing, Tech Zone. Mark stood inside the store where May and Ange stayed when he and Paula went to find medicine at the first floor. Behind him was some of the employees along with Bernard and Calvin, who he asked to assist Ange earlier. After he sent Abigail with Paula, Ange and May to wash up and get clothes and shoes for her at the stores they had been to before, he went to check back this store. In front of him was a man who was sitting on the floor gagged and tied up with extension cables. The man was glaring at Mark with overwhelming hate that even made Mark feel a slight headache. This guy was the man who was arguing with James before. He was the man who lost his wife in the zombie massacre that happened here in the Tech Zone this past noon. Why was this man tied up? At the time where Mark and Paula were getting ready before finding the medicine, Mark tasked Ange to protect May from this guy as he felt that this guy's emotions were in turmoil. He was exuding faint killing intent even though this man held it back. As Mark was going away, he predicted the possibility of this guy making a dangerous move. And it really happened. As the only one left beside May was Ange, this guy thought that it was his chance. To most people who did not know Ange, she was just a frail-looking girl. Unfortunately for him, he totally underestimated her and got defeated. However, Ange got wounded on her palm since she did not expect that this guy would suddenly take out a butterfly knife during their fight. "How is it? You think you can pull that idiotic and unreasonable revenge of yours?" Mark spoke and pulled the gag on his mouth away. "UF*CKER. Me? Isn't that you?" Mark stared at the man with eyes full of contempt. "I already explained what happened earlier, right? If you want someone to blame about what happened to your wife, blame yourself." "What did I do wrong? You bastard did not tell us about what would happen. She died because of you." "What an idiot. What are you doing?" Mark pulled the collar of the man up and dragged him out of the store. He threw him in the middle of the vacant area in front of the store that was already cleaned and looked at Calvin. "Remove the cables." Calvin looked confused and asked as he removed the cables tying the man. "What are going to do?" Mark shrugged and replied, giving him a chance for his revenge. Everyone who was watching was surprised. After the man was untied, he pushed Calvin away and immediately charged towards Mark and unleashed a heavy punch. The punch was strong and fast, but to Mark, who already activated his adrenaline rush, it was quite slow. With a slight side step, Mark dodged the punch and unleashed a heavy kick on the man's stomach, making him kneel on the floor in pain. "What? Is that the extent of your revenge? How funny, your wife died and you can only take revenge on a weak girl? I know you were afraid of me because I had weapons before, but I don't have any right now. You're that weak and you actually had the guts?" Mark started throwing insults. The man heard Mark's insults and was burning in anger inside, but he could not say anything back as the kick he received was too painful that it started to churn his stomach. Seeing that the man was about to vomit out the contents of his stomach, Mark unleashed a merciless kick on the man's face, knocking his body several feet away. "Don't try to dirty the floor." The people watching was dumbfounded at how ruthless Mark was and started to pity the man. Still, no one went up to stop Mark. Everyone who was watching here saw what happened before when the man attacked the two girls inside the store. The man felt pain on his face and stomach as he curled his body down on the floor. Ting! The man heard a metal sound in front of him. Looking up, he saw the butterfly knife he had before. "Stand up and take that. Though after the moment you pick that up and attack, I'll kill you." The man heard Mark's chilling voice filled with killing intent. Even the people watching could not help but shudder. "Isn't that a little overboard? Nothing happened to the girls after all." Bernard, who was near Mark, asked, which made the latter glance at him. Still, Mark did not take his attention away from the man on the floor. "Well, yeah. He failed, but that did not mean that he will not do it again. Also, even if he did not pick up that knife, I won't let him roam around freely." Bernard shook his head. He felt that Mark was really angry about what happened. Mark looked back at the man who was struggling to get up. "Oh, before I forget. I already asked these guys about you and your wife." Mark opened his arms, indicating the people watching around them. "Your wife actually stopped you from being coaxed by that fat bastard, but you just ignored her. Didn't it mean that you are the one who actually killed your beloved wife?" Mark continued with a grim sneer filled with malice. As if a thunderclap sounded in his ear, the man froze, staring at Mark wide-eyed. "I was the one who killed my wife." Those words echoed in his mind as he started to lose his sanity. The man started screaming, which made the gallery take a step back in fear. As if he forgot about the pain he was feeling, he speedily picked up the knife beside him and dashed towards Mark like a crazy man. Mark smiled as he readied himself to deal with the man. This insane attack was all he was waiting for. However, before the man could even reach a meter away from Mark, a red shadow flashed towards the man coming from the direction where the door that led to the service corridors was located. The red shadow clashed with the man's body and the man flew away like a kite without a string towards the wall. The man whose head hit the wall fainted immediately, and his arm that was holding the butterfly knife was bent between the wrist and the elbow. The man's arm was decimated, and that was not the only injury he received from that impact. Everyone looked at the perpetrator of what happened to the man and saw a 5 to 6-year-old girl wearing a red frilled dress with her wavy hair tied into low twin tails with red ribbons. Everyone was shocked, along with May, Paula and Ange that just returned. Mark also felt astounded, but it did not appear in his face. He already knew that this girl was peculiar, so his shock was lesser than the people around him felt. From the calm emotion she exudes to the strength that was not suited for her age and physique, everything about this girl was strange. He approached Abigail and sat down in front of her with a bitter smile. "Gail, why did you do that?" Gail, that was what he decided to call this little girl. To his surprise, it seemed that that was what her mommy also called her before. Abigail looked at the man in dismay and then towards Mark with a disappointed look. "He was attacking Papa. I wanted to kill him. I failed." What in the world is this girl saying? That was what everyone who heard what the girl said was thinking, except Mark though. When she said that, Mark started to have a liking towards this girl aside from his interest to her peculiarities. Mark patted Abigail's head. "You don't have to do that, all right? Papa can handle himself from a trash like that. I wanted to kill him myself, you know?" Abigail nodded. "Just what are you teaching your daughter?" Everyone dismayed. And the pair of father and daughter that had low value towards the life of others was born. "Papa, I'm hungry." "All right, let's get something to eat." Mark looked at May, who was pouting by the side, and signaled her to follow him, which made her beam into a smile that dazzled the males watching. Mark picked up Abigail and walked away, followed by May, leaving the people who did not know what to do anymore. 8:15 p.m. City Mall, Bacor, West Wing. Tech Zone. Inside the store where the laptops were set, Mark sat on a chair with Abigail on his lap. He gently blew on the soup inside the spoon he was holding in his right hand and fed it to Abigail. In front of them, there were several steaming hot instant cup noodles and waffles along with several bottles of drinks. It was fortunate that one of the stores inside the Tech Zone actually sell assortments of USB accessories and equipment. The water used for the cup noodles were heated using USB thermos, and the waffles were heated and cooked using a USB insulation bento box, what was currently plugged into a phone charger and was being used to heat other foodstuffs at the moment. Beside Mark, May was looking enviously at Abigail while eating her own cup noodles. On the counter, Ange and Paula were fiddling with the laptop. They were contacting the military while trying to get a hold with Ange's father. James also passed by earlier, informing Mark that the guy that he trashed already died. Mark was not surprised by it, as it was the reason he left with Abigail and May that time. Though the only visible injury was the broken arm, Mark detected the extent of pain the man felt before he fell unconscious. It was likely that the man's ribs were broken and tore into his organs. The man's head also hit the concrete wall too hard that it was probable for him to receive a severe head trauma that could lead to brain hemorrhage. Removing the unnecessary thoughts in his mind, He picked up a slice of cheese waffle from the table and let May beside him take a bite. May's eyes gleamed with glee and hurriedly took a bite. Mark was having a headache. Since Abigail appeared earlier, May started feeling envious of her as the little girl was being carried by him. Most people might not have noticed, but for Mark, who was an empath, he could detect the rapid changes in May's feelings towards him. All of it was because of Abigail. Mark turned his head and looked at the two college girls seriously typing something at the laptop. Asterisk 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 8:21 p.m. a Euro. Central Business Park, Pasay City, Diosdado Macapagal Boulevard. A convoy consisting of 3 military Hummers was rushing along the road. Inside the Humvee, in the middle of the convoy, General Miguel Perez sat on the back seat with a gleam of excitement and relief on his aged face. He just received a call from the rescue department that his daughter contacted them. After he got the news, he immediately passed his orders to his aide to take command for a while before leaving. The convoy stopped outside the former call center building. As the general walked out of the vehicle, another military jeep came and Teresa, his future daughter-in-law, walked out of it. The two went in together and was received by the waiting personnel. The general started to inquire about the situation as they walked on the hallway. "What's the news about my daughter, sir? Your daughter is still online and she said that they are currently out of danger." According to her, there was a request for rescue that came earlier about survivors at the Bacoor City Mall and she was included in that report. The personnel replied. "Wait, that report?" Teresa interjected, making the general and the personnel look at her. "You know about it?" The general asked. "I was there when that request came in. Remember my friend Laura that I recommended to this department to volunteer? She was the one who received the request." The general turned back to the personnel. "Was there a rescue squad dispatched to them?" "Not yet, sir." General Miguel was surprised. "What is the reason?" "Sir, according to the previous report, they had 47 survivors with them. We needed more squads to return to accommodate the rescue for all those people." The general frowned but understood the situation. The 3 people hurried towards the rescue department office. Asterisk 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 back at the tech zone, Ange, who was just typing on the laptop, suddenly stood up and looked around, making everyone in the store look at her. "What's wrong?" Mark, who was feeding Abigail, asked. "I need a phone. Dad just arrived and told me to find a phone with an active number." Hearing what she said, Mark took out his newly acquired phone and gave it to Ange. "Give me that back later. Is your father going to register the number to a private network?" Ange nodded as she received the phone. "Just check the number in the settings." Ange fiddled with the phone while returning back to the chair in front of the laptop before she continued typing. Soon, the phone rang, which Ange immediately picked up. "Dad, Angeline. Thank goodness you're fine." "Well, yes. We almost died, but we're safe now." Mark almost choked when he heard what she said. He concluded that Ange was daughter who was good at making her parents worried. "Dad, will you send us rescue?" "We will. We are just waiting for the rescue squads to return and we will immediately dispatch them to your location. In the meantime, I'll relay your location to your eldest brother." "Brother? Raph? Why, I sent him to search for you this morning. He should be nearby your location." Ange's eyes lit up. "Good, Angeline. How many people are with you now? Is the number different now?" Ange looked at the people sitting in front of her and asked. "How many are we here?" Paula was about to reply when Mark answered Ange's question. 48, 43 adults and 5 children. Ange immediately conveyed what Mark said on the phone. Paula, on the other hand, looked confused, then looked at Mark with realization. Ange continued talking with her father on the phone, telling what happened to her. Her father actually wanted to talk with Mark, who saved her daughter, but he declined as Mark was really not comfortable speaking with others through a phone. Mark and the others already finished eating several minutes before Ange finished the call. Abigail was already sleeping as she sat on Mark's lap and leaned on his body, curled like a cat. The little girl felt sleepy after her stomach was stuffed full. After she finished the call with her father, Ange really looked happy. She also told Paula about her family who was already rescued. Paula really looked relieved, but for some reason, she was glancing at Mark every now and then. Mark was getting irritated at her as she was glancing at him from time to time, so he spoke. "If you have something to ask, then ask." Hearing his cue, Paula sat on the chair properly. "It's about the number you told Ange earlier. It's short by one person." She then looked straight at Mark's eyes. "Why are you not coming with us?" Ange and May's eyes grew wide at Paula's revelation. May immediately turned to her Gerger and asked him, followed by Ange. "Gerger, it's not true, right?" "Yeah. Why not?" Mark sighed. He stretched his hand towards Ange. "Give me my phone." Ange immediately returned his phone and he opened a social media app on it. He then browsed to some posts that he tagged and pinned and showed it the girls. "I have to look for these people. You three knew that I had a bad relationship with my family, right? During the heavy times, these people were there who stood as a pillar for me when I needed someone to stand beside me. They were like brothers and sisters to me. Though a few things happened and I neglected them. Right now, they needed help. I have a very large debt to them, and this time was the first and might be the last time I can repay them." The three girls grew silent. "I had many friends before, but these few people were the only true friends I had. I may not care if it was people I did not know, but these guys were like family to me." "Then, I'll go with you, Gerger." May spoke her intention, but Mark shook his head. "Why?" Tears started to fall from May's eyes. Mark grabbed her shoulder and pulled her, making her lean towards his shoulder. He then gently caressed her hair. "Mayor, it will be dangerous, so I can't bring you with me. I don't even know if I will find a vehicle I can use. If I can't, then I will be forced to go on foot. I know I can handle myself, but I won't be able to protect you. Can't we just send them rescue after them? I can ask my dad." Ange suggested. "Just how long will that take? Mutated zombies are already appearing and you haven't seen what I saw in the videos uploaded in the internet. The more time it takes, it gets more dangerous. And also, even if your father was a general, he will suffer repercussions for abusing his authority if you force him to do what you want." Ange dismayed while Mark looked at Paula. "Can I get the favor you owe me?" "What is it?" "I want you and Angeline to take care of Mayor and Abigail after you guys arrive at the evacuation center." Paula was reluctant to agree. It was not because she did not want to take care of May and Abigail, but she felt that it was better if Mark was the one to take care of the two. She sighed as she saw the resolution in Mark's eyes. During the short interaction with him since he saved her and Ange, she started to understand this scary guy's personality. He was indifferent to people he did not know and was ruthless to his enemies and people who offended him. However, he was kind, caring and overprotective to people he liked, had interest and had close relations with. The way he treated Ange, May and Abigail was the best example. Especially May. He might not have noticed it, but he was treating her like a treasure. "All right, I agree. 8:15 p.m. City Mall, Bacor, West Wing, Tech Zone." As Abigail was deeply asleep, Mark put the little girl on the folding bed to make her sleep comfortably. After he went back to his seat, he pulled the crying May into his lap and hugged her while patting her back. He thought of doing this since May was really envious of Abigail all the while the little girl took this spot. And to his surprise, it did not take long before May stopped crying. "Will you be fine going alone?" Paula asked. "Actually, I wanted to ask you and Angeline to accompany me while I also bring Mayor with me. I changed my plan though because of you too. Angeline's father was a general and your family was also rescued, so I thought that May will be safer if she go with you too." He patted May's head since she separated from his embrace and was listening to him. Mark looked at May gently and said, "Mayor, I wanted you to come with me, but I won't be able to protect you. What I will encounter outside are not only zombies but also all kinds of people." Mark pinched her cheek. "Your face is too beautiful that it will meet all the trouble you see." Hearing what Mark said, the three girls understood. Even if Mark was able to protect May from zombies, flocks of evil men would do all they could to get their hands on her. In the current world where the society started to fall apart, aside from a very few places, laws and religion did not matter anymore. "How about your family? You maybe have a bad relationship to them, but they are still your family. Ainge asked. It was quite unusual for her to ask something serious like this. To her question though, Mark shrugged his shoulders. My family was on vacation in Katandwanas. Before the outbreak, it would take more than 8 hours in a bus and boat to get there, but now, I'll be dead before I could even get halfway there. Besides, Katandwanas is a large island detached from the mainland. It is likely that they are safe in that place unless an airplane filled with zombies crash-landed there. Still, the chance is close to none since there are very few flight routes that pass over that island. Yoreta Genjitsuken Nakashita Ma. Mark's phone rang. He then gave his phone to Ainge without checking the number of the caller. It should be for you. Seriously, what's with your ringtone? That's my phone all right. I can customize it however I wanted. Ainge harumphed before answering the phone. Hello? Angeline. A familiar voice spoke from the other side of the line. Brother. Geez. I was looking all over for you. Just why are you and Paula there in the mall? I already told Dad. He didn't tell you? He did? Still? Where are you now? Are you coming here already? We're here camping at your school. We're already preparing. We had other survivors with us, so it will take us about 30 minutes to get there. While Ainge was on the phone, Mark suddenly asked her. Your brother is coming? Ainge nodded. How long? Are they just soldiers? About 30 minutes. They have survivors with them. All right. Tell your brother to head to the basement parking of the mall. Ainge was surprised. Aren't there zombies down there? There should be, but far fewer than other places. The only people who would go there are those who have cars. As for the other zombies, I have a plan. All right. Ainge nodded and turned back to the phone. Angeline. Angeline. What? Don't shout. You're also shouting. Who are you talking to? I'm talking with Mark. Who's Mark? Her brother sounded confused and dumbfounded. The guy who saved me and Paula. He said that you and the people with you should head towards the basement parking when you arrive. Why? He said that there should be fewer zombies there. When Ainge said that, her brother had already thought of several reasons why and agreed to follow what Mark said. All right. I'll hang up to prepare. Be careful there. You too, take care. Bye. Ainge returned the phone to Mark. Mark stored the phone in his pocket and spoke to May. Mayor, can you stand up now? My legs already feel numb and we still have things to do. May nodded and reluctantly stood up. The other two girls saw her reluctance and started to get curious. There was something wrong here. If it was just May, then they would not notice, but it was also happening with Abigail. Just like May, Abigail also preferred to be hugged and carried by Mark. What's wrong with you two? Mark, who was stretching his legs, asked as the two college girls were staring at May and whispering at each other. We just noticed something. May and Abigail seem to like being hugged by you for some reason. The envy on May's face was obvious when you were carrying Abigail too. We're just wondering why. Mark also looked confused. He could not detect Abigail's emotions, but he could confirm that they were saying the truth about May. Care to tell why? Mark asked May. To their surprise, May looked away and was reluctant to speak. Mark detected a tinge of greed from May. Greed for what? It made Mark more confused as he detected May's inner emotions. Mayor, I won't hug you anymore if you don't say anything. May panicked hearing her Gurgur say that. She then started to speak while playing with her fingers. Uma Euro Gurgur, you see. I feel really comfortable when you hug me. My body feels light and relaxed. Gail should have felt the same. She easily falls asleep while hugging you. I also feel the same. May was twisting her body in embarrassment as she narrated her reason. Ainge and Paula looked at Mark in inquiry. What? I have no idea what she's talking about. Mark proclaimed his innocence about the topic. Anyways, we have to hurry. We have less than 30 minutes left before your brother comes, Ainge. Mark decided to push the unnecessary topic for another time and move onto the more urgent one. Paula, can you stay here to guard Gail? We can't just wake her up since she just fell asleep. Okay. Mayor, Ainge, follow me. "Oh right, Ange, call Uncle Bernard and Calvin and head to the rooftop. We could use their help." Paula sat in front of the laptop while thinking about few things while Ange went to call the two men. Mark and May on the other hand went ahead towards the rooftop. Mark was checking the perimeter of the mall with May when Ange arrived with the several people. To his surprise, Fernan and James also came with Ange. "Why did you call us here, lad?" Bernard asked Mark. "You haven't heard the reason from Angeline? She told us that her brother is coming. Still, I'm surprised that she came from a family that had high standing in the military." "Yeah, me too," Calvin added. "Mark, tell us what we need to do. My brother will be coming soon," Ange urged Mark. Mark looked at the people around him and spoke. "Well, Angeline should have told you guys that I told her brother to go into the basement parking." Everyone agreed. There should be just few zombies in the basement parking, but the problem is that there are too many zombies outside the mall and on the street. It would be hard for them to pass through all these zombies for sure. So we need to lure the zombies away. Mark then glanced at the crates nearby, making everyone aside from James what they would do. "Boss, what do we need to do?" James asked. "Light some fireworks." 8:48 p.m. Euro. Emilio Aguinaldo Highway, Bacoor City. A large convoy of military vehicles was speeding southbound of the highway. The convoy consisted of 3 M35 multi-purpose medium-class military trucks, 4 Humvees, and a V-150 Cadillac Gauge Commando armor car. The convoy moved with V-150 leading it, while the 3 trucks in the center and the 4 Humvees in a rectangular formation protecting the trucks. Inside 2 of the trucks, the anxious survivors who were rescued were restless as the occasional firing of guns was heard around them. Inside every vehicle, the unceasing sound of radio static could be heard as the soldiers on the other vehicles report their situation every now and then. First Lieutenant Rafael Perez was sitting on top of V-150 along with 2 more soldiers that were positioned on the 2 mounted machine guns on the vehicle. He was staring on the road in front of the convoy with happiness and excitement in his face. "Captain really looked happy, isn't he?" One soldier on the front seat of the military truck following the V-150 said as he watched their captain sitting on top of the vehicle in front of them. "Why won't he? We're all ready to give up on finding his sister," but he then received a call from the general about her location. The driver of the truck replied. Raphael's face then lit up as he saw the overpass less than a kilometer away, which leads directly on the covered area of the mall outside the East Wing. Boom. PRRSSSHT. Boom. PRRSSSHT. All the people in the convoy were startled when they started to hear loud explosion-like sounds along with glimpses of flashes of light on their destination. "Fireworks? What are they doing?" Raphael murmured in surprise. On the roofing that covered the rooftop of the mall, several people were scattered. It was Mark's group which were ready to start luring the zombies away. Mark positioned himself at the roof above the northern entrance of the mall, Ange and May on the northern east corner of the East Wing, Calvin and James on the northeastern part of the West Wing, while James and Bernard on the northwest corner of the West Wing. With the 2 girls who were in charge of spotting the incoming convoy as exception, the men had crates of different fireworks behind them, a shaped wire firework launcher, and were holding a USB lighter Mark handed them. PRSSSHT. The radio on Mark's belt started to emit static sounds followed by Ange's voice. "East Wing to command. East Wing to command. I had visuals on incoming vehicles. The targets are approaching. ETA 5 minutes. Mark took the radio out, held one of the buttons and replied. "Command to East Wing. Copy. Everyone commence operation. West Wing 1. West Wing 2. Prepare to launch the fireworks on my command." Mark's voice could be heard following a static sound on the 2 pairs of men on the West Wing. The 4 men on the West Wing heard his and Ange's voices through the radio James distributed to Calvin and Bernard, who was acting as leaders among the employees. Aside from James, who looked amazed, the other 3 felt exasperated. During their meeting, aside from telling them what they needed to do, Ainge and Mark decided to add a little play and started acting like military soldiers while talking on the radio. The two even named the plan that they were going to do. The name was Operation Early New Year. After Mark declared the start of the operation, he lit up the fuse of the rocket firework that was already placed on the wire launcher and aimed it at the road below. Swoosh. Boom. Prssssth. The firework flew towards the front of the mall and blew up with a loud explosion sound and a chrysanthemum of colorful lights. Numerous loud growls and moaning were heard below, followed by a large number of zombies coming from all directions towards the spot where the firework exploded. Swoosh. Boom. Prssssth. Mark release firework by firework, leading to a plethora of lights and shapes luring almost all the zombies within the vicinity. There were even times that a zombie would get parts of their body explode as a firework hit them before exploding. When most of the zombies were gathered at the spot Mark was shooting the fireworks at €. Mark shouted at the radio, "West Wing 1, release the fireworks." James and Calvin, who were the West Wing 1 pair, launched their fireworks towards the road in front of them, luring away the zombies Mark gathered. Though they released their fireworks at the same timing and rhythm Mark did, the difference on their task was they needed to aim further to the west, luring the zombies towards the northwest corner of the mall. It did not take them long before they finished their task, and Mark shouted for the last team, West Wing 2, to launch their fireworks. Bernard and Fernan, who were the pair Mark and Ainge called West Wing 2, were tasked to lure the gathered zombies from that corner of the mall towards the back of the west wing of the mall, and they did it the same way as James and Calvin did. When the two finally lured the most of the zombies towards that direction, Mark, who already ran towards the end of the south wing, prepared for the last phase. He was standing beside a cylinder firework launcher that was placed horizontally on the roof on the eastern side of the rooftop. The mouth of the cannon was facing towards the western side of the south wing. Mark then braced for the sound and launched the firework. A large ball of light speedily skid several times on the flat roof before it flew off and started falling on an arch towards the parking lot behind the mall. Boom. A loud quaking explosion echoed behind the mall, followed by a large circular display of scattering light as the ball of light exploded above the parking lot. Wee. Woo. Woo. Woot. Woot. Before the sound of explosion faded, numerous sounds of car alarms started to echo across the area. That was Mark's goal on aiming the cylinder firework that direction, to use the explosion of the firework to activate the car alarms of the cars parked in the parking lot. Wee. Woo. Woo. Woot. Woot. The continuous sounds of car alarms started to draw the attention of not only the zombies outside lured by the fireworks, but also the zombies inside the mall that was nearby the exits that facing the parking lot. Mark watched the large horde of zombies flocking towards the parking lot with his scalp tingling. Just how many zombies were below? Hundreds. The quantity might not have reached 1,000, but probably close to that number. Though he could not clearly see the appearance of the zombies below due to the lack of lighting in the parking lot, he could make out several odd-looking silhouettes like a 7-foot-tall muscular zombie and several fat mutants. Seeing that the plan was a success, Mark turned towards the west wing where he could see the 4 men watching the scene below on the parking lot. Prssssht. West Wing to command. West Wing to command. We have a situation. Ainge's anxious voice suddenly came out of the radio on his waist. Command here, what happened? They haven't arrived yet? Mark replied. No, Lieutenant Ahema Euro, let's do this later. They already arrived. My brother is on the phone and said that the basement parking is closed and the metal parking shutters are locked down. What? Mark was surprised. What about the employee entrance? It should be just by the right of the parking entrance. Bernard's voice echoed in the radio. Wait, I'll ask. A few seconds passed before Ainge spoke again. He said that they can't open the door by force. It's barricaded inside. What the hell? Mark felt that heaven was *TTING on them. He then shouted on the radio. Angeline. Return to the tech zone and prepare. We're going down. May. Follow her and stay with Gail and Paula. The rest, Stay here and relay the situation to us and use the fireworks to keep the zombies away from the people below." Mark then jumped off the roof towards the heliport and rushed towards the West Wing. 8:56 p.m. Euro. City Mall, Bacoor, Front Mall Underpass, Basement Parking Entrance. First Lieutenant Rafael Perez and his men were getting ready to eliminate any approaching threats as the soldiers moved into formation. The two trucks that transported the survivors were put in the center of the formation, while the other vehicles were used as barricade blocking the two available entrances into the underpass. Back on the way here, Rafael and his men were surprised by the sounds of fireworks that the lieutenant had to call his sister to explain what was happening that time. Angeline properly explained what was happening, and he felt grateful as he and his men would face lesser danger to get into the mall. They encountered a very low number infected when they arrived, and those numbers were nothing to them as trained soldiers. They did not even open fire and just dealt with the threat on close quarters. Then, they saw the closed parking entrance and the barricaded employee entrance. The soldiers had the notion of blasting the metal door, but the amount of explosives they had left would not even open a hole big enough for the vehicles to enter and might possibly break the mechanisms of the gate. The explosion would also attract the infected to this place. Abandoning the vehicles outside was also a no-go, as they would need the vehicles in order to evacuate if something unexpected to arise. Before his sister ended the call, Raphael actually wanted to stop her from doing something dangerous, but he did not in the end. With her stubborn personality, she would still go even if he told her not to. The lieutenant looked towards the entrance of the underpass. He could still hear the continuous sounds of fireworks keeping the infected at bay. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Mark and Ange were currently rushing down the stairwell in the West Wing. They dropped off May with Paula and the still sleeping Abigail. Paula also wanted to come, but as they needed to move fast, only Mark and Ange were suitable for the job. Just why is the parking entrance closed? Ange felt angry and were complaining as they jogged down the stairs. Who knows? I expected it to be open too, if you ask me. The employee entrance was barricaded and the entrance was closed. It's likely that there are people that hide in there. Mark replied, looked at Ange and continued. Just which dumb people would stay in dark place like that? I can't be called dumb in this place, I think. Why? The basement parking also serves as a cargo bay and had direct access to the warehouse of the mall, so if they manage to secure the parking area and the warehouse, then they will be able to live for a long time without worry for food and water, though I did not expect that there would be anyone who can do it since the outbreak came so sudden. Ange looked at Mark. Why do you know a lot about this mall? Remember my job hopping? I also worked here before. The same work as Fernan and James. I also remember Uncle Bernard a little, since that old man was already working here that time I was hired, though I don't think he remembers me since I looked younger that time and we never really interacted during the 6 months I worked here. That's a euro. Ange was surprised. Mark and Ange arrived at the lowest level of the stairwell and stood in front of the door. Mark then frowned while Ange reached for the door, but it would not budge even an inch. It's no use, it's barred from the outside. Let's hurry back up and use the elevator. Mark, who was frowning, said, Is something wrong? Your voice sounds serious. Remember my ability? Yeah, Paula said that you found Abigail and those two using that, right? Mark nodded. There's a problem. I don't detect any human nearby inside the parking area. What? Anyways, let's go. We just need to be extra careful. The two hurried back towards the 3rd floor and waited for the elevator. Asterisk asterisk ting. The elevator opened, bringing Mark and Ange into the basement parking. The eerie feeling assaulted them. The basement parking was actually the largest parking space in the vicinity of the mall. The parking area occupied the space under the central area, West Wing, and the East Wing of the mall, while the area under the South Wing serves as the main warehouse. There were 2 entrances that led to this area. One was at the underpass under the city mall's main door, while the other was a direct access to the warehouse on at the western side of the South Wing. The South Wing entrance, though, was closed most of the time since it was only used as exit to cargo vehicles that already finished unloading their cargo. In order to open the main entrance, They needed to locate the guard post that had access to controls of the main entrance. Mark and Ainge carefully looked around. There were neither zombies nor humans in sight. If I knew that it would be like this, then I didn't have to lead her brother here, Mark thought. He expected that this place would be brimming with zombies even if the numbers were fewer than most parts of the mall. Though it would be fewer, he was sure that they would still not be able to handle that number with just a few people with very low firepower. And thus, he decided to get some helping hands. Eerie. That was Mark thought as he and Ainge hurried across the parking area under the West Wing. The place was silent. Though Mark was fond of silent and peaceful places, the silence in this area gave him a different vibe. There were a lot of cars parked along with several delivery vans, but there was not a single soul in sight. When they were near the central area, they stopped in shock. The area was brimming with dead bodies. Not bodies of dead zombies, but humans. Decapitated, mutilated and dismembered bodies of humans littered the floor. It may be children, men, women and elderly, no one was spared. Splashes of blood, bullet holes on the floor, pools of blood and scratches on the concrete made the scene too strange. Ainge could not help but gasp. Mark approached one of the bodies and picked up a few things. The body he approached was a man wearing a white security guard uniform. His eyes were still open and the horror in his face was visible. The guard's upper body was cleanly separated from the lower part. Mark picked up a revolver in his hand and took the bloody belt bag that contained bullets from his waist. He then approached Ainge, who was still shocked at the scene, and held the gun and belt bag he just took towards her. "You can use this, right?" Ainge snapped out of her stupor when he heard Mark's voice. She nodded. "Then take it and be on guard." Mark's voice was really stern as he continued. "You should only focus on letting your brother and his men inside. Don't think about anything else." "What's wrong?" Mark looked towards the central area. "Nothing. We just might die if you get distracted about other things." Ainge looked at him wide-eyed. Mark then looked at Ainge. "Promise that you won't look back no matter what and concentrate of getting them inside. I know I make fun of you every possible time, but not now, all right?" Ainge noticed that things were really serious since Mark was acting like this. Actually, by the time they saw the bodies, Mark's back started to get drenched in cold sweat. When he found Abigail, she had faint and very calm emotional fluctuations that he did not notice her immediately. But right now, he was detecting the complete opposite. He was detecting an overpowering, wild and highly erratic emotional fluctuation that could even make an average empath kneel down due to a head-splitting headache. He then looked towards ceiling of the central area, murmured under his breath that even made Ainge dumbfounded. "It smells like a boss fight." 9:06 p.m. Euro. City Mall, Bacoor, central area, basement parking. Mark and Ainge entered the part of the basement parking that was under the central area of the mall with their guns in their hands, ready to shoot whatever was the cause of the massacre. As they stepped into the area, there was an unknown pressure that enveloped their bodies. It was not a feeling of being watched or being stared down by a beast, but rather, entering a territory of a terrifying monster. They were less than 30 meters away from the entrance of the basement parking, but the pressure they were feeling made them feel that the distance was even further. Mark looked at the direction opposite of the entrance and spoke to Ainge, who was behind him, with a low voice. "Angeline, go towards the entrance and find the control for the shutters. Tell them to not enter with the survivors they brought or they might become a hindrance. How about you? I'll stay here and lure whatever this thing away if it tries to attack." "All right, be careful." Ainge looked one more time at Mark and hurried towards the entrance without making too much noise. Mark kept staring in front of him, trying to detect any movements. The intense emotional fluctuation increased when they entered this area, but Mark could not determine the exact location as there were dim areas inside the parking area. It seemed that several lights were busted or might even be deliberately destroyed, as Mark could make out several broken pieces of LED bulbs on the ground. He then reached into the right side of his helmet and turned on a device he attached to it. It was a small Bluetooth camera that was connected with his phone. He found it boxed in the shop he was made his base in. He started recorded for various reasons. 1. for research purposes, and another was for documentation of how he died if ever it happened. Blagum. A few seconds after Ainge left, a dead body of a man was thrown away not far from Mark's position. As Mark was already waiting for any movement, he did not flinch from the sudden appearance of the dead body. It also made him determine the position of the creature that he was looking for. He could see a silhouette of a woman walking on the dark side of the parking lot in the middle of two cars. The creature sluggishly walked out into the light and Mark finally saw it. It was a woman about several years older from his age, only wearing her lingerie. She had a long black hair and a good-looking face. Well, the left half of her face was the only good-looking part now though. On the right half of her body, from her foot to her face, a gray-colored armor which had a texture similar to human bones enveloped her. There were several black pointed bones protruding from some of her joints on the right side of her body, like her right knee, right elbow and right shoulder. There were also several pointed bones protruding from her chest and even pierced through her right breast, which looked like parts of her rib cage. Her right eye was glowing yellow and staring straight at him as if was something insignificant. Her body and armor was stained with blood. At the end of her fingers, there was also black-colored claws growing where her nails was supposed to be. She walked while dragging her left foot and tilting her head to her left. Drops of blood fell from her chin and claws to the floor. On the uncovered part of her body, her black-colored upper and lower lingerie was exposed and her skin was stained and dripping with blood. Even the left half of her face was smeared with blood. Mark was dumbfounded. Her face was not smeared with blood, not only from other people but also from her own. Her left eye was still dripping with tears, red blood tears, and there were also traces of blood coming from her mouth. Mark reached for his collar and played a song from his phone. He made sure that the volume is just enough to hear the song while still being able to hear the sounds around him, so he would be able to hear when the entrance opened. The song started to play. Mark's eyes then dilated and he immediately jumped and rolled to his right. At the instant he rolled away, several black flashes appeared where he stood before. Fast. The instant he played the song, the woman covered in bone armor traversed about 10 meters in an instant. Even though the woman's speed was fast, Abigail was still faster. Mark could only see a red shadow before, but Mark could still somehow react to the movements of this woman. After rolling to the ground, Mark stood up and jumped back before firing his shotgun towards the woman. Bang! Damn it! Mark cursed in his mind. This mutant woman had better instincts compared to the mutant zombies he encountered before. When Mark fired his gun, the woman immediately jumped up using her right armored foot and propelled herself towards the ceiling. That was about 7 meters distance from the ground. The woman pierced her claws towards the ceiling, spun her body forwards and kicked the ceiling, propelling her body towards Mark. Mark wanted to fire at her once more when had to dodge towards his left as he did not dare meet her attack head-on. If he did even once, he will become minced meat. His armor would not be able to protect him from something that could effortlessly pierce through the concrete ceiling like the claws of this woman. After he dodged, he was facing the woman's armored side. The woman fell on the ground as she swiped her claws through the empty air. Bang! The mutant woman tried to jump again to dodge the shot that was aimed at her head, but as she was in close range, she was not able to fully dodge it. The pellets from the gun hit the woman on her right shoulder, making her flew back as she was not in contact with the ground. You got to be kidding me. Mark stared in disbelief as he saw the spot that got hit. There were dents on the armor covering her shoulder, but it was mostly intact. The woman turned towards him, glaring in rage with her glowing eyes, and jumped towards Mark. The sudden explosion of emotion that came from the woman made Mark's eyes blurred for a little less than a second. Still, that short time he lost focus made him lose his chance to dodge the woman fully. Mark jumped and rolled to his right, but 3 of the woman's claws managed to swipe across the glass covering of his helmet. His helmet now had 3 gashes in front of it. Fortunately, the glass cover of his helmet was made with plexiglass, or else his face would already be covered wounds from several thousand broken glass fragments if it was not. He almost died to that attack. He should brace himself from this woman's wild fluctuations, or his ability as an empath would be the one to pull him into his grave. Bang! Bang! Mark shot twice in succession. One hit the woman on her armored waist but managed to dodge the second shot as she jumped away. However, it was what Mark wanted. He did not want to kill her with those shots, but he wanted her to get away. He jumped back after the second shot and ran behind a nearby sedan. He decided to remove his helmet that was of no use at his current battle and was now a hindrance due to the slits on the glass cover. Mark removed the Bluetooth camera on the helmet and stuck its hook onto his collar. He then ran away from the car as he heard the roof of the car dent after the woman jumped on its roof. Bang! Mark shot the woman on the roof of the car, making her jump towards the ceiling. She then kicked the ceiling again and propelled herself towards Mark only to meet his unexpected attack. He threw the helmet towards the woman charging at him. The woman slashed the helmet into pieces but lost the opportunity to attack the Mark who was waiting in front. Bang! The woman's body spun backward as the shot hit her face. Mark did not rejoice, however, as the woman turned the unprotected half of her face away in the last moment, making the shot hit her right armored cheek. The woman lied down on the concrete floor, but Mark did not press the next attack. He ran away behind another car while his right hand reached into his belt bag. He needed to reload. Strange enough, he finished reloading and did not receive any form of attack. "Ah!" Mark heard the mutant woman scream. It was not a scream to warn her enemies and not a scream to attract other zombies. It was a scream of pain. He peeked from behind the car and saw the woman standing unsteadily while flailing her arms. She tried to move forward towards Mark's direction, but he noticed that the unarmored part of her body was holding her back. "Runa Euro." Mark was surprised. The mutant woman spoke. Her voice was weak and unsteady. "Run!" she shouted as her left human eye stared at Mark. The light on the woman's left eye started to dim once more and stopped speaking. The armor on her body started to grow, leaving only a quarter of her body left. The claws grew longer and her mutant yellow eye grew brighter. Her left eye was now halved in color. She then moved in for another attack. A more ferocious, more powerful and faster attack. Mark jumped away from the car and the woman's attack hit the vehicle, making the 2.9-ton car skid towards the other car parked beside it. Mark now knew that time was the crux to survive this. It would be either Ainge managed to let the military inside as fast as possible and to kill this mutant before her body was fully covered in armor. He knew that when that happened, this woman would be in her strongest form. While Mark was fighting with the mutant, Ainge was running towards the parking entrance, trying her best not to turn around for another time. At that time Mark's helmet was slashed. Ainge saw it happen. She had the urge to run back and help him, but she firmly held to what Mark told her to do, to let her brother and men for reinforcements. She could hear the sounds of a shotgun being fired and the booming sounds every time the mutant woman hits the concrete floor and ceiling behind her. There were also sounds of metal being slashed and car windows being smashed. Several car alarms also began to sound. All those sounds gave her the urge to turn back, but she managed to hold it in. Even if she managed to turn and head back, Ainge knew that she wouldn't be much of help right now. Even if she had trained in Taekwondo and Karate, it won't be enough. At that attack that she saw, it was not beyond her cognition, but she knew that she still would not be able to react to it. She even started to wonder how Mark was able to fight with that mutant without being killed easily. She also have a gun, but she doubted that she could do any damage to it when Mark's shotgun could not. When she arrived at the parking entrance, she saw the metal shutters that were blocking the way while she started hearing sounds of assault rifles from the other side. She took out Mark's phone from her pocket and called her brother while she started running towards security booth in the middle of the entrance. The call connected. "Angeline, brother. What's the situation outside? I'm already on the other side of the entrance." "What? Ho. No, you got here too quick. Are there no infected or people inside? Answer me first." Ainge shouted at the phone while she tried to open the door of the security booth. "It's locked. She won't be able to open it with force as it was made with metal." She started to look for another way in. "The infected are already surrounding us. The fireworks attracting the infected already stopped moments ago." "What? Why? Wait. I'll ask them. Ange picked up the radio holstered on her waist and called while she made the phone and radio face each other. Uncle Bernard. Uncle Calvin. Are you there? There was static for a few seconds until someone replied. We're here. She heard Bernard's voice, but it was noticeable that they were panting hard. Did something happen? The fireworks stopped. We had to run. There's a mutant on the roof running on all fours and can climb walls. Fernan was scratched and Calvin hurt his leg since he had to jump halfway on the ladder to escape. What? Okay. Are you guys safe now? We just managed to enter the stairwell in the west wing and jammed the door. We're bringing Calvin and Fernan back first. All right. I'll end the call. I'm also in a hurry. She holstered the radio once again and spoke on the phone. Brother. You heard that? I did. Okay. I'll hurry up and try to open this damn entrance. Don't hang up and just let the call run. And stop cursing or father will scold you later. Now is not the time for that. Ange put the phone in her pocket but did not end the call. She already ran around and found no other way in but through the window. Unfortunately, the window was equipped with a reinforced glass. Without any choice, she held her revolver pistol forward and shot towards the window. Bang! Crash. The ear-piercing sound of glass shattering echoed after her pistol was shot as the tough reinforced glass shattered into pebble-sized pieces. After jumping into the window, she immediately found a control panel on the table along several office supplies and coupon-sized printed papers. There was a smile in her face as she pushed the buttons on the panel, but her smile grew stiff and her face grew dark. After pushing the buttons, the only thing that moved was the security gates on both sides of the security booth and not the shutters at the main entrance. Ange started searching inside the security booth and found nothing that looked like something that controls the shutters at the main entrance. Shit. She was sure that her brother heard her say that as he started shouting on the phone. Brother. Now is not the time. She picked up the phone after jumping out of the booth. I know. I just want to hear the reason you were cursing. The control to open the entrance is not inside the security booth. Then it should be inside the main security room or the control room of the mall. It was there most of the time we had operations in other malls before. Just where in hell can I find that room? We don't much time to search for it. What's wrong? You're very agitated. Mark is fighting against a powerful mutant right now. He might get killed if we take too much time. What? Tisk. We have no choice. We'll abandon the vehicles here outside first. Angeline. Go inside the employee entrance and remove the barricades behind the door. The entrance should be on the west side of the entrance. Okay. Ange saw that door, immediately ran towards it. She readied her gun and busted in. There were several zombies inside the room. She was no hesitation in her eyes anymore. She immediately shot the zombies, whether it was a biter or an eater. After dispatching the zombies, she immediately shut the open door on the southwest side of the room, which led into a hallway that also had zombies running towards her. She then started to remove the chairs, tables and other heavy stuff that were cluttered into a barricade on the front door. Mark was panting as he ran in between cars. He already disregarded his state after this battle as he used his adrenaline rush in full throttle. Still, his chances to attack were getting lesser and lesser. If not for this ability, he might have already turned into minced meat already. This parking lot was the mutant woman's domain. She was like a fish in the water while he was shackled by his physical limits. The mutant woman could use the ceiling and the walls, could jump over and topple cars, while he could do nothing but run and dodge with almost no time to counter-attack. Several cars already started to make noises as the alarms installed went off. Broken glass windows scattered on the ground while the smaller and lighter vehicles were already toppled. Mark was also pushing his mental abilities to his maximum capacity. He was trying to resist the pressure this mutant was inducing and detect her emotional fluctuations to monitor her attacks, and when the woman's conscience was able to resist for a moment. He already noticed that even if the mutant woman was fast and strong, it was not her full strength at all, as if she was holding back. Using the emotional fluctuation, knew that the woman was still there trying to resist, but whatever the cause of what was happening to her was eating her inside slowly, physically and mentally. He started to understand that what was happening to this woman was different to the eaters and biters. Using his assumptions, fat mutants mutated after turning into a biter while mutated eaters changed after they became eaters. The woman he was fighting right now started mutating while not turning into one of the two. He did not know the reason, but he was sure that it was the case. Bang! Mark managed to make an opening by hiding behind a parked van near a wall. He jumped towards the wall and propelled himself onto the roof of the van. The mutant, who was not expecting what he did, as it tried to chase him, was caught off guard. He managed to shoot her open back. Blood gushed out of the woman's unarmored back and she screamed in pain. The woman staggered as Mark detected her human consciousness tried to hold off her uncontrollable body. She turned towards Mark while the remaining half of her human eye was tearing up with blood. "Please. Kill me, I can't hold on anymore." The bone armor started to grow once more. Though it was visibly slower, it was still growing.